right. Any other powerful thoughts from Zone to Win?
Well, I do think it's fun if you set us, and I would argue that maybe you would go through a transformation maybe once a decade. I mean, not more often than that, I would hope. So that means that there's a lot of years where you're not transforming. And what we've learned from that, a couple of things. We've learned that the incubation zone is not, even if you were a startup in the first time around, you're not set up to run the incubation zone once you're a public company. So it actually requires a special model. It's the venture capital operating model. You should create a fund. You should create a board to manage the fund. You should fund people to milestones. It should feel a lot like venture capital. People get that idea in a heartbeat, but they actually don't do it. And when you don't do it, you end up dragging your incubation zone into the performance zone, and it creates chaos. It's just a mess. It doesn't work. So I think just getting people to appreciate the idea that each zone has a model that is optimal for that zone. You want to honor that model in that zone. But if you use that model in any of the other three zones, you're going to cause problems. And most companies, as you well know, privilege the performance zone first. So they try to apply the performance zone to everything, right? And then the productivity zone next. Well, we have processes for everything. Well, for your zone, yes, but not for the other zones.
Would you say that, I should just ask it open-ended, who is the biggest model citizen of actually applying Zone to Win successfully? I want to say Apple, because Apple, over the last 20 years, what Apple seems to have done is they've gone from complete lack of success to one huge success after another, spaced out 3-4 year periods at least in between. Right? They've gone from iMac to iPod to iPhone to iPad to entertainment, right? And so and iWatch or the Apple Watch, and so they continue to bring out one major technology at a time and cultivate it and develop it until it becomes meaningful.
So I think this is an important lesson, and Steve Jobs gets a. Most people, when they talk about Steve, they're always talking about, well, he thought different, he was a visionary, which he was. But he had a rule and it's the rule of the transformation. It's the first rule. He said, at Apple, we do one thing. And that's, so when we do the iPod, he had the iPhone very shortly after the iPod. But he didn't put it out there. It's because he wanted to take the iPod all the way to bright, make sure it's fully established, and then he did the iPhone. So that singular focus was critical to his transformation. The interesting thing about Apple, I would say, after Steve, so people said, well, after Steve, there's going to be no innovation, blah, blah, blah. The Apple Watch came out. It was okay, but it wasn't a barn burner. But the point is, Tim Cook's doing something very different. Tim Cook is saying, it's not about the product anymore. Now it's about the system, the ecosystem. So it's not the iPod, it's iTunes. You said entertainment. It's not the iPhone, it's the App Store. In other words, it's going to be, it's not the iPad, it's going to be Apple Pay or what. In other words, if you look at how Apple is creating ecosystems of around their digital products, that's something that Steve never. That was not Steve's talent, but that's Tim Cook's talent. So there's another wave of innovation going through, and I think people really underestimate how much. Well, look at the value. Look what's happened to the stock price of Apple during the last 10 years. I mean, it's gone from, I think, about 500 million to over 2 trillion. So that's pretty good.
It's amazing the consistent success they've had for a long, long time now.